What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in on today's video. I'm Gabe, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my 100,000 miles that are on my 2010 Camaro SS. It's a pretty big milestone for any car, and I thought you guys would love to learn a little bit about how my car has held up and some of the things that I've been experiencing these past 100,000 miles of life on this car, or about 10 years or so, particularly during the time that I've actually owned it. So guys, what I'm going to be talking primarily is going to be in three different components of the car. It's going to be the exterior, how has the exterior held up these last 100,000 miles? How has the interior held up? And of course, the engine and other maintenance component parts of the car. So without further ado, let's get started. First thing I want to mention is the exterior paint color. This is an actual original factory color, which is aqua blue metallic. From about, let's say, 10 feet away or so, the car looks like it's in pristine, immaculate condition. But if you get closer, you do notice that there are some imperfections. For example, I do have a lot of rock chips there. It does have a little bit of rock chips on the side. It's pretty typical for a car that has 100,000 miles and that's daily driven. That's not a garage queen. It's really not that noticeable. And what you really focus on with the car is just how gorgeous this blue color is. It's just phenomenal. It's probably one of the best colors to put on a Camaro. The car does have some paint swirls, but that's really more of like poor cleaning practices and not really attributed to 100,000 miles on the odometer. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to point out that aren't as trivial as, little paint chips and paint swirls here and there. And that's actually going to be found on the side view mirror and on the roofline molding, and that has to do with the color fade of the beautiful blue due to the scorching sun that is here in Florida, and of course the lack of paint guard or I guess paint coverings. The roofline molding here, that seems to be a very big problem with 5th generation Camaros, and it's something that a lot of people complain on the forums. And of course, one cannot ignore just how mean and aggressive the car looks with all of the aftermarket Z28 parts that I put on it. This car to this day still has that effect on me of whenever I park the car, I start walking away and I turn my head around and look at this car, I always say the same thing in my head: damn. I do have to admit that the paint and the exterior color as a whole, it's held up really nicely. So now let's talk about the interior. So I want to start off with the passenger side and the rear seats, because there's really not much to go over. I mean, the passenger seat is in perfect condition. Actually, the glove box here does have some scratches here. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys can relate to that, because again, this is not the best material, and naturally, if you have a passenger, they're going to be kicking this, or by accident you scratch it with your nails. This side and the rear seats are in perfect condition because really nobody uses them. The leather on the steering wheel starts to go bad over the years. Again, this is my daily driver car, so and I live in Florida again, so I sweat a lot. I mean, you can see that I'm sweating right now. So whenever it comes in contact with the wheel and you're turning, you sometimes like pick up some of the leather and it starts to fade away over the years. So it's not uncommon for that to go bad, especially at 100,000 miles and daily driving. But if we move further along the center console here, we start to notice that everything is in pretty good condition. The only thing that is obviously imperfect about this is the leather around the armrest here that opens like the center like storage area. That right there is actually pretty common with a lot of cars, so that's not something that is specific to the Camaro. It's actually more along the lines of cars with leather. You can notice a lot of that wrinkles here on my driver's seat. The headrest is fine, but now when we get to like the holsters here, you start to see that the color of the leather that used to be this very nice jet black color now starts to fade away. It starts to wrinkle away. And of course here where my hips would go, this side seems to be normal, but this one on the contrary, I think that's because whenever I get out, you get out through this way, so you put more stress on it. And this is actually something that I've noticed is happening quite a bit with some Camaros. I don't know if anybody has experienced this, but I got this with the car, and I've just never figured out how to do it. I'll probably do it another time, but overall the interior is in pretty good shape for 100,000 miles and daily driving. Alright guys, so like the exterior and the interior part of my 2010 Camaro SS, the maintenance and the engine components, all the performance stuff that came with the car or that's part of the car have been fairly well kept and actually have not given me some major problems yet. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the things that I've had to do to the car to keep it running and overall how the car has held up. So the first thing that I want to mention is that I bought this car with 62,000 miles back in 2016, and at 67,000 miles, so only 5,000 miles later, I had to replace the water pump. Could I have done that myself? Probably, yes, I could have. It's not a very difficult repair to do, but at the time I was working 2 jobs and I really didn't have much time to do that. And I remember that the car hit a temperature of 250 degrees, the coolant temperature, and as you guys know, that is definitely not normal running temperature for a 2010 Camaro SS. It's anywhere between, I'd say, about 180 to maybe 207. That repair alone cost me about $430. So the next repair or the next nuance that I found came about 10,000 miles later at 77,000 miles, and I started to notice that the car was riding a little bit rough as opposed to when I had gotten the car. And I later diagnosed that it was the suspension. It was actually the strut that was leaking hydraulic fluid. And about, I'd say, 800 or 1,000 miles later, the car started to make some creaking noise, kind of like a noise every time I would like get it into gear and start moving, or it would go over a bump. So it would be really uncomfortable showing up to a meet and, you know, just having that noise. That happened around the time of my birthday, which was about, I'd say, about a year later or so. And my best friend bought me a set of Megan Racing Coilovers, and I am so thankful for that. I actually made a video on those Megan Racing Coilovers, you know, my experience with them, how they handle and all of that stuff, pricing. You can guys check out the card up here or the link in the description below. And of course, aside from having a performance enhancement, it also improved how the car looks as a whole. I mean, it kind of looks a lot more flushed, it looks more aggressive. So after that 77,000 mile repair in the suspension, around 11,000 miles later at 88,000 miles, the flywheel, the clutch, and the bearings completely shot. Being a manual car, I expected the clutch to go out quicker than an automatic. I don't really know if the previous owner had blown the clutch before or if 88,000 miles is pretty reasonable for a clutch to go out. I'm actually very surprised that I blew the clutch at 88,000 miles and not at like 65 or 70,000 miles when I essentially got the car, because I had never driven a manual car to this extent, like to the amount of force that I've been driving this car. It was a very painful, financially speaking, to replace. So at 92,000 miles, I actually had to do a repair that I was never expecting that I would actually have to do. And this repair is actually kind of like a half and half. And that has to do with the headlight bulbs. Well, the headlights, and I'll explain right now. My headlight went out at around 90,000 miles, and actually, no, it was more like 91,500, I think. And I drove about 500 miles with a missing light because I was kind of tight on money at the time. And because I was tight on money, I kind of cheaped out and bought these really cheap Chinese, like, high voltage or high temperature headlights that gave it like a little blue effect. And I wasn't aware that it would do that. So when I installed these headlights, I was basically driving at night with little to no visibility. The temperature was so hot that it actually melted the light bulb housing. So it pretty much rendered it completely useless. And I had to get an entirely new set of headlights because I didn't want it to mismatch either. So I had to buy 2 separate ones and install them. And that probably cost me around $350 or so. And that was just a repair that was so stupid because I could have just bought the regular OEM headlights and I would have probably never had to spend that much money. So about 3,000 miles later, or at 95,000 miles, I ended up replacing the spark plugs. Now, spark plugs can last to 80,000 miles on some cars. It can go a little bit further out. I thought to myself, well, I have the money now, and I was kind of thinking that my Revs startups that I was having at the time was attribute it to the spark plugs. I actually have a really cool video that shows you how to replace the spark plugs on a 2010 through 2015 Camaro SS with an LS3. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the same with the L99. You could check it in the cards above or in the link in the description below. It wasn't very expensive either, probably around $60 to $70 for the spark plugs. I got the AC Delco ones. All right guys, so for the sixth and final reason at 100,000 miles that I actually replaced, if you guys aren't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so we can get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of this year, guys. That's my goal for 2020, 2,000 subscribers. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, my reviews, my vlogs, my showdowns, anything of that nature. So guys, let's get back to the video. All right guys, enough of that. So let's get to the last repair that I had to do at 99,000 miles. And that was the starter replacement. Now, like the spark plugs, I also have a really cool video on YouTube that is very informative and it's very detailed on the process of replacing the starter. You can check it up again at the cards above or in the link in the description below. Very easy repair, and it was actually very necessary because that was actually what was causing the delayed startups, the starter. Who would have thought? But anyway guys, that was about $100 or so to repair, and like I said before, it's not an extremely fatal thing to the car or very fatal to the wallet. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I also replaced the stock OEM rotors and brake pads. I gave them I think like an aftermarket. I don't remember the brand exactly, but I bought them on Amazon for about 279 bucks. I painted the calipers in a yellow color that again looks phenomenal. I would not have chosen any other color, to be honest. So that's pretty much all the repair, guys. As expected, this is a V8 muscle car, so the gas mileage hasn't been necessarily the best for me. I've averaged so far about 13.5, which is not great, but not terrible. I think in the last 4 years that I have owned the car, I probably have spent $600 max. I think even less. But the oil changes are fairly easy. What do you guys think? Should I do a how-to on it? Let me know in the comments section below. That's about it, guys. I hope that you found this video informative and entertaining. If you guys have had any of these problems and tell me roughly at what mileage you've had it, go ahead and comment in the comment section below. I'm very curious to see what other Camaros are going through. And of course, guys, if you did find this video informative and somewhat entertaining, go ahead and hit the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, guys, like I said earlier, do not forget to subscribe. Let's get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of this year. That is a goal of mine, and I'm very thankful for every single one of you guys that has subscribed. And guys, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, any of my reviews, any of my how-tos. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you next time. Peace.